And while we wait to hear from Kathy, we will ask Jean Borden to stand in as chair for our meeting. And the first item, which doesn't really involve the chair at all, is a reading of the proclamations to our two most senior members who are departing the committee today. This is their last meeting, and that is Jean Borden and Kathy Pearson. So here with us is our city manager, Robert Zadnik, who was also the Public Works Director for many years and worked with Kathy and Jean, and so is familiar with their work here in the committee. And in a minute here, we'll hear from Robert.
Thank you, Tony. Yes, I do have a couple of proclamations. And before I start, I guess I just wanted to say thank you to Jean and, of course, Kathy, who's unfortunately not here today for the many years of service. I started in 2016 working for the city of Belvedere, and you and Kathy were both already, I think, long-term members of the committee. So I've really appreciated your experience, your expertise, your experience, and yeah, all the knowledge and wisdom that you've brought along with it. So thank you very much. And like Tony said, I do have a couple proclamations. Jean, since you're here, I'll go ahead and start with you first. Yeah, these proclamations are going to be read into the record, and then we'll deliver a nice plaque and a printed version of that with signatures by the mayor and vice mayor a little bit later. So starting a proclamation. The Belvedere City Council is pleased to honor Jean Borden upon retirement from the City of Belvedere Parks, Open Spaces, and Lanes Committee. Whereas Jean Borden was appointed to the Parks, Open Space, and Lanes Committee in June 2015 to fill a vacancy left by Jan Anderson, and serving diligently through 2024, including a term as chairperson, contributed significantly to the committee's goals. Whereas Jean's expertise and knowledge of horticulture have greatly benefited the Parks, Open Spaces, and Lanes Committee, including her substantial work on the Trees, Views, and Vegetation Committee, Task Force, the Belvedere Playground Remodel Project, Golden Gate Lane, and numerous other planting and maintenance projects around Belvedere. And whereas as a Marin Master Gardener, Jean has consistently promoted broader public engagement in horticulture and raised awareness about the critical impact of vegetation on our community, actively garnering support from numerous civic projects. Whereas Jean has played a pivotal role in developing priorities and policies for the conservation, restoration, and maintenance of the parks, lanes, and open spaces, specifically enhancing the beauty and habitability of our city. So now be it therefore resolved that the Belvedere City Council, on behalf of the citizens of Belvedere who have benefited immensely from her devoted volunteer efforts, recognize Jean Borden for her extraordinary contributions to the Parks, Open Spaces, and Lanes Committee and the broader community. We express our heartfelt appreciation and gratitude and wish her many more years of fruitful involvement and accomplishments. Please hold your applause. I hope I got everything right there. You can come see me afterwards if I forgot something. Okay. A master home gardener. Got it. Kathy, it doesn't look like is here yet, so I'll just go ahead and read her proclamation then, and we can recognize her a little bit later. The same proclamation, the Belvedere City Council is pleased to honor Kathy Pearson upon retirement from the City of Belvedere Parks, Open Spaces, and Lanes Committee. And whereas Kathleen Pearson was initially appointed to the Parks, Open Spaces, and Lanes Committee in December of 2015, succeeding Barbara Brookins, and has served as a committee member and vice committee chair with distinction through June 2024. And whereas Kathy's dedication to this committee and her creative insights have been invaluable in shepherding a variety of projects, including the Community Park Playground remodel, the Golden Gate Lane Stairway Project, and planting projects at Centennial Park, Tom Price Park, Land Company Park, and Five Corners. And whereas through this work, Kathy has always sought to encourage public interest in outdoor space by advocating for the improvement and upkeep of the city's lanes. Whereas Kathleen has been instrumental in establishing priorities, policies concerning the preservation, restoration, and maintenance of parks, lanes, and open spaces, substantially enhancing the enjoyment and livability of our city. Whereas, sorry, this is the last whereas Kathleen has attended countless committee meetings and has provided leadership on important issues such as the maintenance of public views, vegetation, and trees. Now, therefore, be it resolved that that the Belvedere City Council, on behalf of the citizens of Belvedere who have greatly benefited from her dedicated volunteer service, hereby acknowledge Kathleen Pearson for her lasting contributions to the Parks, Open Space, and Lanes Committee and the broader community. And again, we express our profound appreciation and gratitude and wish her many more years of impactful engagement and accomplishments. Thank you. That concludes the proclamations read into the record. I think, Tony, maybe there's an opportunity to pass the mic around. I'll leave that up to you.
Yes,
Chair Borden.
item 2 on the agenda was comments from Jean Borden and Kathy Pearson, but absolutely this would be an opportune time for public comment.
So the problem that you face, Jean, and if Kathy were here, I would say it to her as well, and you too can listen. And that is, once you've spent so much time and effort on behalf of Belvedere, we're not going to let you leave easily. So you could become a volunteer for life without knowing it. And thank you very much for everything you've done to beautify our gorgeous, gorgeous little town that we live in and cherish. And I know you feel the same way. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Robert, also. Again, I did want to clarify that I'm not a master gardener. I'm a home gardener. I love being in the garden, but I go to others for advice. And I can remember, well, some of the great things about having been on the committee are the staff and the committee members that I got to work with. And I remember when Robert first came to Belvedere, I think I might have been chair then, Robert just jumped right in to help me out. He showed up down in the park across from the yacht club with his clippers, and we were cutting off bushes, which I was taking up. I think it's in Nevada where the master gardeners do have an office, and they will give you diagnosis about this and that, which was great. And then also when Tony replaced him, that also has been terrific because they both are very responsive. And it's been great working with them and with all the people on the committee. I guess there have been 2 challenges and they both somewhat continue. One is a lack of code enforcement and one is lack of funding. Kathy and I did this big view report together at the request of the then city manager and the planning director, because they wanted to know specifics. So it's filled with all sorts of comments from the general plan on how important views are, all these code provisions we have about heights of hedges and other things. And unfortunately, I mean, there's still hedges that violate the codes, which grow every day on Belvedere Island. And there are also still view easements on West Shore, which are like slowly disappearing all the time. And I mean, you mentioned that I succeeded Jan Anderson, and Jan had done a report on handrail repairs and installation. And it's significant that today, the things that she listed, there are things which are still not done because there's not funding. And I just happened to look at the budget, which is going to go before the city council for approval at their next meeting. And I mean, once again, there's no general funds for lane maintenance and repairs or lane design and engineering. And the allocation is based on some money that the council found in another source, which is good, but it seems like that limits the appropriation. It's coming from the Transportation Authority of Marin, which I guess is pretty creative, but it somewhat limits the amount. And then on the capital appropriations for fiscal year 25 for item 9216 Park Lane, stair and seating, the appropriation is 0. And for Hawthorne Lane stair rebuild, 9217, the appropriation is also 0. And my late husband and I happen to be good friends with Mason Wells, who deeded the city Artist View. And I noticed that that now has completely dropped off the 5-year plan, which I was sorry to see because the committee had hoped that at least it be listed there so people didn't forget about it. And then on the 5-year capital plan, out through 28, 29, Park Lane and Hawthorne still are at 0. So I view those as ongoing challenges. I know Jenna, who's not here, has done a great job making presentations to the council. So I don't think it's for lack of trying on our part, but I mean, it's a challenge going forward. So I do thank everyone for the opportunity to have been on the committee and look forward to seeing what the committee is going to do in the future. And I think we can, if anyone has any other comments.
I could say something. Jean, I'm only just getting to know you. I'm looking forward to running into you, walking around Belvedere. I think at least once I did a head take and saw you, and I didn't make the connection, but I won't forget that.
I realized afterwards.
Yeah, I won't forget next time. It's amazing to see the service that you've dedicated to Belvedere through this and many other things. I think there's big shoes to fill here, and I just want to say thank you. And also those proclamations were awesome. I've never seen a proclamation being read, and pretty cool. And it's pretty amazing to hear all that service that you were able to give back to this community. So thank you so much.
It was a committee effort.
Yeah.
All things here are committee efforts. So that's why we've had great committee members and continue to do so. So I think maybe I should call to order the regular meeting. I just wanted to make some notes here on public comment. At each meeting, the public has the opportunity to address the committee on items appearing on the agenda and items not appearing on the agenda, but within the purview of the Parks, Open Spaces, and Lanes Committee. Public comment may be made live during the meeting in person, via Zoom, or through written comment. If you have called into the meeting and wish to speak, please press *9. The public may also submit comments in advance of the meeting by emailing ccook@cityofbelvedere.org. Written public comment will not be verbally read aloud. The committee will not entertain comments made in the chat function. Please be advised that those participating in the meeting remotely via Zoom do so at their own risk. The committee meeting will not be canceled if any technical problems occur during the meeting. So the next item would be a roll call.
Thank
Tony,
you, Committee Member Borden, and I will start with you, Committee Member Jean Borden,
Present.
Committee Member Nicholas Markman,
Present.
Committee Member Charlie Harrington,
Present.
and Jenna Watson has given us an excused absence, and Kathy Pearson has not returned a call. at this point. We hope to hear from her soon.
The next item, so just for the record, since we're a committee of 5, 3 present does make a quorum, so we can proceed. The next item is the approval of the minutes of January 18th, 2024, a regular meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? I do not have any changes. Could we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. The next item will be the report from Public Works Director Anthony Boyd.
Thank you, Committee Member Borden. As everybody is very aware, spring has sprung and our maintenance activities are really revolving around trying to keep up with the many weeds and vegetation growth that's happening. So you'll see that finally San Rafael Avenue has been cleared of weeds, and that's happened just this week actually. We have a crew out there that'll be out here for the next several weeks going around the city, weed whacking street verges and along with our crew maintaining landscapes. There has also been work in aerating, overseeding and fertilizing the parks, the turf in the parks for their springtime aeration. San Rafael Avenue landscape has had the repairs done to the DG pathway along there. There is a fair amount of tree work going on. We're very lucky that we didn't have any major trees coming down during winter. Often that takes up our budget. And so we had some money left over to do some proactive maintenance on some of the bigger trees in the city. So 8 sycamore trees at Tom Price Park had some work done a couple of weeks ago. There are 7 sycamores on Bayview that will have work done in the next couple of weeks. And Community Park also had pruning work on all the trees. There's been some staffing changes. Our maintenance superintendent, Gerhard Laufer, very sadly passed away last year. And we ran a recruitment for a new supervisor. And I'm very happy to say that we had an internal applicant who was clearly our best candidate. So Alberto Carenza will be taking over from Gerhard in all of his duties. He has already started. And I'm sure, I know that Gerhard has, over the years, generally had communications with committee members and city members, city residents. So I'm sure everybody will get to know Alberto just as well as Gerhard. And most of my other updates are actually going to be covered in the items in the agenda. So I will leave it there.
Thank you. Do you think it might be appropriate at some meeting just to have Alberto come to introduce himself to our committee and vice versa?
Yes, thank you for the suggestion. I think that's a great idea.
Connect the name and faces.
Yeah, I'd actually, I think it would be great if he could provide an update from time to time as well. So he can also be involved.
Thank you. And I did want to comment on the positive that Park Lane, they did a big clearing of all the 3-foot thistles, so those are gone. On the other side, near 270 on Belvedere Avenue, there's a hedge of broom that comes up every year, and it's now higher than the guardrail. And so it'd be nice to kind of, I know they probably don't pull it, they mow it, but it'd be nice to get rid of it before it goes to seed.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm pretty sure
270
that's-
Belvedere.
That's the address. There are 2 mailboxes together.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we can definitely take a look at it. There are a few sites with broom that we'd like to tackle.
I know there's lots. My yard is endless weeding. So thank you for all
Yep.
the good work.
Of course.
Is there any public comment from anyone watching on Zoom or anyone in the audience?
Nobody on Zoom.
Okay. Sure.
So I was wondering, especially with Jean here, does this, I know you're involved in trees, noise, and the parks, et cetera, but one of the problems that I see public, very necessarily, that are sidewalks that a lot of homes that have local license. Their plants have all grown into the sidewalk. So I'm sadly watching going on the sidewalk, climbing it, and they're totally pushing out with this. The people had to go out into the street right at that corner at West Shore. Completely you don't see around it. And so it's something that I think is something else for a while, but is that a figure out a way to move forward with how we can possibly get community members to take care of their plants so that they don't inhibit or impact people that really need to use them, kids and strollers, etc. That's, I know I can bug you, Tony, but I didn't know if it was something that this group would like to participate in.
I'm not sure. I don't think it's strictly in the purview of the committee, because it's really sidewalks and sidewalk
That's what
clearance.
I thought. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is vegetation, but it's private vegetation.
I
So,
didn't know
yeah,
because of the sidewalk piece of it.
yeah, and that's, I will be happy to chat to Robert and see if he has a kind of a perspective on it. But yep, I agree that, and I know exactly the kind of vegetation that you're talking about.
I think
So,
this
yeah.
kind of ties into the fact that Belvedere does not have a really good organized code enforcement procedure. Because I think in most cities, the sidewalk is the responsibility of the homeowner, which I don't think people even realize. But that's kind of an enforcement issue and letting people know that they're.
I know the Public Works does let them know, but then it's, what's next? So anyway, I don't want to take.
Yeah, and well, no, it's a bigger, broader issue of certain things, codes not being enforced on private property. And it's a danger to the public.
Yes. Yeah, and as you say, enforcement is, sort of, well, I think that's the critical kind of, that's what's missing is enforcement, and maybe something can be done. Yep, we can discuss offline. Yep.
Do we just put, historically, have we put notices in people's mailboxes? Or, I mean, we keep saying enforcement is tough, but we're not a large community. I'm curious, why is it tough? I don't know. If I got a letter in my mailbox, maybe it's just ignorance. I didn't even realize that was happening, and that solves a lot of it. But do we do that? Have we done that historically?
I have sent out a letter before to people kind of in the flats over here, because that's where we have most of our
Yeah.
sidewalks, asking them to remember to cut back their vegetation. But you're right. I mean, a kind of a direct letter to an individual or a resident is a starting point. And yeah, I guess the question would be, steps after that, but there's no reason that somebody couldn't do that as a starting point.
Yeah, I feel like that would maybe it's ignorance, but we're a small enough community that I feel like that would capture some very high percentage of the issues.
I mean,
Very possibly. Yep.
that would be the polite starting point. And
Yeah,
then
versus
if nothing
enforcing,
happens,
yeah.
one of those yellow papers that say notice, but I'm not sure who does that, the planning department or the building?
I'm not sure either, again, because it's private property, and typically the planning department, planning and building deal with private property issues. But this is encroaching onto a public right of way. I don't think it's something that would be that hard to figure out, to be honest. I think, just a chat with Rebecca, between Rebecca and me, maybe with Robert, and we can come up with a plan. Yeah, and I think, it's a matter of identifying all the places. And I think that probably wouldn't be too hard either. So prioritizing it would be the issue.
And I know that, just to let you know, the planning commission had changed so that now no one, even if it's regional or park, they're not allowed to plant any type of bush or flowers or anything that could potentially grow to the point where it's getting inside. So going forward, that won't be an issue. But over the years, I think there's some succulents, et cetera, and they've sort of taken over. But
Yeah, and I mean, part of the issue is it's pulling a yarn. At what point, so some people have some vegetation that's coming over 6 inches into the sidewalk, which wouldn't normally be a problem. But if you're telling a neighbor whose stuff is growing halfway into the sidewalk that they need to cut it back of curb, I mean, my concern would be that there might be some finger pointing and asking why certain people are allowed to grow things in certain ways. But this is something that we can discuss and put a letter together.
Yeah, is there some way that we can get, put this on our agenda just so we can get some feedback and keep in the loop on this? I mean, it is
Certainly, we
private
can-
property, but it's a public right of way, like the lanes are public property and are public right of way, but sidewalks. are part of
Right.
walking around.
I can
An open
put it on
space.
my list of things to suggest for upcoming agenda items, and we can track it that way.
Yeah,
This
maybe-
reminds me of your comment a couple of meetings ago about the fact that there's no sidewalk all the way down San Rafael.
Yeah, I was gonna plug sidewalks in general. As always, I know the approach that the city takes as far as upgrading and expanding those when the houses adjacent to those parcels are. But I saw that those diseased trees were removed outside of the one, like it got me thinking about a great sidewalk that could go in, because that is, as a parent of small children, something that I dread going to the park, and I shouldn't dread walking to the park. And so maybe not in our purview, but since we have a public forum, I'll express that again.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if someone from planning could let us know what planning's doing. Because it does have,
Well,
it does affect, as he says, use of the parks.
Public Works is involved, and that house in particular has just sold. I believe that the new owner is planning on doing, significant renovations, and Public Works will be conditioning a new sidewalk to go along with a lot of their work. Yeah, yeah, and that's the other location where that's happening fairly soon. It takes a while for these things to kind of work their way through, but is on the corner of Lagoon and San Rafael Avenue. There's a corner house there that is going to be having a sidewalk added as well, and that's I know for a long time that's been on the wish list for a lot of people, is for a sidewalk right there. The school bus, one of the school buses at least, stops there, and it's the start of Lagoon Road. So, yep,
Is that, just curious, is that just expanding for that one lot?
it is. Yeah. At this point, yeah.
We're getting off track, so I'll get backtrack in a little bit. But I know the lots after that house all have just a gravel. I'm curious if there's an opportunity to expand it all the way to the following corner where Lagoon really wraps around and people get on the main pathway. Because it seems like it'd be low fruit, because that seems graded, it's gravel, it's just not paved.
Possibly. Yeah.
Cool. Very exciting.
Say again.
I said very exciting. I didn't get so excited about sidewalks, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a vision of sidewalks that really do make that whole walking route would be something nice that like we're committed to or that we're
Yeah.
interested in long term.
Well, as you said, it's, and I think a lot of people do. I think, yeah, I think a lot of people are secret supporters of sidewalks, because definitely whenever I talk about sidewalks to people, they're always very happy to hear that they're being, expanded or improved in any way. But I was going to say that, I think it would be out of the purview of this committee. That said, that's how a lot of people access the parks and playground. So it's not that far out of the purview. And I think I can certainly update the committee on improvements.
And I mean, cars go so fast on San Rafael Avenue, or the big electric bikes. I mean, it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Okay. The next item on the agenda, number 6, is a presentation on owl boxes by Rebecca Dimitrick, CEO of Human Wildlife Control, but I don't see her in the audience, so.
And I'll quickly add, so I believe she's going to be joining us on Zoom, and will be making a little presentation on that. But just as a background, this came about because of a discussion on trees, and owl boxes were one of the ideas that came up in the committee's discussion. I can't even remember what it was related to, except that that it seemed like a good idea and something that we could maybe look into for some of our parks and city properties. I believe it was Jane who added that we have a coyote issue in the city, and related to coyotes are rats, and this could possibly be a way of helping to control rats and also help our coyote problem. So Rebecca is the consultant that the city works with on the coyotes, and she is a wildlife specialist, and is also passionate about owl boxes. So she is the ideal person, I think, to talk to us about that. And is she on there now?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you a little quiet. Let's see if we can raise your volume there.
All right, can you hear me better now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. Yes, I've been here. Can you see there we go. Yes. All right, you ready?
No, not yet. We don't see your screen. Have you shared your screen?
Nope. I'm about to do that, if that's okay.
Okay. Yes.
To try right now.
Go
Bear
ahead.
with me. 1 second. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, great. It'll be quick. Hi guys. Thank you for inviting me tonight. And the barn owls that we have, the American barn owl, they're much larger than the European cousin. And so because of that, our barn owl boxes, the artificial boxes that we provide for them, have to also be much larger. There are a lot of very, very bad barn owl box designs out there. And even being promoted by so-called experts and even Cornell, and they're really, really bad. So they just don't have the facts, the science, and we do. We've been doing this since 2011. We've been monitoring with cameras. We know exactly what goes on inside our boxes. And because of that, we've been able to design boxes for the welfare of the animals, to keep them safe, and for them to be able to successfully raise large broods. And that's what you want, right? More owls, more rodent control. Aren't they cute? Anyway, so for barn owls to survive in an area, they're not everywhere, but they're in areas that have large fields. In urban environments, that could be golf courses, school grounds, parks, but they do need open ground to hunt in. Also, they don't really like heavily forested areas or areas that block their entry point. They need a clear area to swoop into their home. Also, when deciding where to put an owl box, you have to be aware that raptors like to sit on prominent points, so make sure that it's not near an electrical pole. Also, a precaution to take is to reduce, if you can, reduce the amount of poison, rat poison being used in and around the area. And also another consideration, I'll play this video for you, is for neighbors to know that the baby owls, when they fledge, when they take their first flights, you'll have this kind of activity going on for about 3 weeks. So they can be pretty noisy, they're very active. As far as the installation, it's going to be based on the site where you decide to put it. They should be facing north to northeast and away from prevailing winds. So you kind of have to calculate based on the site where you want to put it. Also, there's the vent. You can see where the arrow is. That's where the ventilation is, and it's opposite of the entry hole. So again, you just have to, and I'm happy to work with you guys if you do decide to put one in. We'll find a place and exactly how to face it and where to put the hole. Over the years, we've landed on this very, very simple design. It's the American barn owl needs at least 10 cubic feet of interior space. Ours is close to 11. The entry hole must be around 6 inches in diameter and must be a minimum of 16 inches from the floor. Adequate ventilation, adequate drainage, and protection from the sun if necessary, just so that it doesn't overheat. Again, this is our box design, pretty simple. The way you access it is pulling the top off. That's how you would clean it. We've had up to 9 healthy babies. These are all babies getting ready to fledge. 9 babies, kind of unheard of, but you know, bigger box, more babies. Where you need to have a sun shield, where temperatures get really high, this is what the sun shield looks like. It's just additional plywood on the outside. We do not recommend putting them in trees. They need to go on posts. We use a 6x6 treated lumber post, about 20 feet, 5 in the ground. That's how we do it. And it's important not to put them in trees because you have to clean them every year. If they're being used, they really need to be cleaned every year between, let's say, Halloween and Thanksgiving. All that stuff comes out of it. And so when we have it on a pole like this, we can safely get up there and clean it. Whereas in the tree, you're very limited on how you can access it. They can also be installed on rooftops. This is at a school near Moss Landing, and it's been used for years. So in Belvedere, you know, I just don't see any real appropriate places other than maybe by City Hall, by the park, maybe there, or possibly over by the dog park. Excuse me. But that's all the only places I can tell, but love to take your questions. So I'm going to quit out of here. I think I can do that and stop share, and I will take any questions.
So does anyone have any questions for Rebecca?
Hi, Rebecca. This is Charlie here. Thank you so much. These are really cool. One question I was wondering, the owl that I've seen in my yard is a great horned owl, I'm fairly certain. And I think there are several on Belvedere. Do you support them in any way? If we wanted to encourage that species of owl as well?
Well, yes, you can put boxes up for them too. They take a little different type of box. They're not a cavity nester. But really I would say that just don't, because people are having problems with little dogs anyway, worrisome about the coyotes. So the great horned owls can actually go after small dogs too.
Got it.
So
Interesting.
I would say not to encourage that.
And the name of the owl that you're suggesting here, can you remind me of it?
Barn owl?
Barn owl. Does Belvedere already have barn owls? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm sure they're over on Tiburon.
Okay, and so if you were to put up one of these boxes, a barn owl would find its way there, or are you seeding it with babies or something?
Yeah, they would possibly find it. It's just honestly, I don't see that there's great hunting grounds there.
Hmm.
There's lots of rats, but given the way they navigate, the way they hunt, I don't know. I mean, I think if you want to try it, maybe put one up and see if, it gets taken up.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I think thinking about the context of this was as the trees were coming down, there was some like the eucalyptus trees or whatever we were talking about several months ago. There was some concern that we were removing the ecosystem where these owls would naturally live. So we're saying like, oh, maybe we should put up boxes or something like that. So that motivated this. I think what you're proposing sounds really cool. I'm sort of thinking this would be a fun thing to partner with a school or something. And I love the webcam style photos. So yeah, I think it's interesting.
Is the main concern you have availability of hunting grounds?
Yes, I don't think that they have, I don't know that you'll be able to attract them. And even if you did, if it's to reduce the rodent population, granted, they do eat a lot of rodents, rats and mice, but I don't think it's gonna really touch the population that you have there, really.
Do you know if there are any in the Tiburon open space areas?
That would be the best place for them. Yeah, the hills. They love those open fields, those hills, the grassland. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know if anyone's tried them over there, though.
I do not.
Okay. Thank you. Tony, do you have any questions for Rebecca?
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to ask just what the sort of ideal hunting grounds would be, but it sounds like you were saying fields, open fields, kind of like we have in Tiburon. Do you think there's any possibility that they would nest in Belvedere and hunt in Tiburon?
Yes, I mean, but I'm thinking if you put it in the dog park is the only place I see that's close enough. I think you would probably you'd have the greatest potential for success attracting them at the dog park because it's kind of open and you've got the fields across the way, the hillside. But I mean, you could put it up at City Hall and area and see what happens.
Rebecca, this is Jean Borden. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. If we decided to do this, what's the protocol? How do we go about ordering and getting one installed?
Sure, I'm happy to do that for you, and I can get you a quote for us to do it, or I can send you the instructions on how to build one, how to put one in, or maybe even work with the local school. A school, if the school does not have AstroTurf, if their ball fields actually have grass, it might be suitable to put one in at the local school.
And are the barn owls just net positive? There's like no reason why you wouldn't want to add these to your community. Like suddenly we have a barn owl problem or something like that, or they
Yeah, you won't.
introduce some other issue.
Yeah, you won't have a barn owl problem. There'll be two, hopefully you'll get two, a mated pair, and they'll stick with that box and they'll have babies, and the babies, just like the coyotes that disperse, the babies will disperse out of the area a little bit. Some may stay around. It depends on the available food resources.
One more question, Rebecca, from me. Just thinking about the if there is a horned owl population in Belvedere already, are they predators? I mean, would they prevent barn owls from nesting in Belvedere?
They can predate on them, but I have them both on my property. I have 5 acres, and I've never witnessed a conflict, and had lots of barn owls produced. I have 3 boxes on my property and have not had a problem.
Sounds like it's worth investigating.
Yeah, I'd be
I think-
curious what the cost would be, and then like the annual poop cleaning situation. And it would be fun to see if there was a school that wanted to partner. And I don't know if you can have a webcam in there and it was on the Belvedere website. That could be a reason people go to the Belvedere website to see the cute owl photos. Or I think that'd be really fun. So yeah, I think it'd be. I'm curious to find out what it would cost.
And it doesn't sound like there's a downside. I mean, if will some other birds try to use it if is there any downside to having this box up there, Rebecca?
I don't think there's a downside at all. It'll bring good attention, and it's a good starting point to talk about rodent control, and also types of poison not to use for rodent control. And as far as other animals taking it up, we can put a shield on the post so squirrels and raccoons won't get in. And I have not had any other birds take up residency specifically for the barn owl.
All right, great. Well, I can follow up with Rebecca in the coming weeks.
Great, thanks, guys.
Well, thank you. It
Thank you.
was a great presentation, and thank you for all the thorough answers to all our questions. And Tony will be getting back with you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for following up on that. That's awesome. That was really interesting.
Yeah, she was actually the last meeting. She was hoping to be at she was excited to join us. But couldn't make it to that one. So it was great that she could be here for this one.
Yeah, no, she was a great resource. I mean, she knew the answers to everything. So that was good. I know we had looked into it once before, and whoever had been contacted was negative, and it never went anywhere. So I'm glad it's come back. Okay, so yet another thing for Tony to do. Then are there any public comments on the owl boxes? I don't see any more comments. So the next item on our agenda is a discussion on Centennial Park. So maybe Tony, you could start off and bring us up to date.
I could introduce that, and just for the record as well, Christina said that there was no sign of public comment on the Zoom. So the slides at Centennial Park, we have a slide subcommittee made up of Chair Jenna Watson and committee member Charlie Harrington, and we have met a couple of times since the last meeting, spurred on by Charlie's presentation and his enthusiasm in keeping the ball rolling. And I'll hand over to him really to give us an update on what's happened. But we have met with some representatives from companies that have worked with embankment slides in parks around the Bay Area.
Yes, thank you, Tony. So yeah, the conversation is continuing, and it does feel as if with embankment slides, there's 2 types. And I think I mentioned this in the first presentation. You either do concrete or you do stainless steel. And with concrete, the first person we met with was an expert in pre-poured concrete slides that are just craned in and airlifted in, and they're just kind of ready to go. It's the full right triangle, everything you need. And fascinating conversation. We talked a little bit about how that would be quite challenging with all the trees and things like that in our situation. And we talked a little bit about, I showed him some of the images of the ones in San Francisco, and it looks like those were probably sort of poured and designed there. And it was his point of view, this was his business as well, but folks who know how to do that are few and far between. So the suggestion was either you kind of go with this sort of prefab concrete thing that has to be airlifted in, or you go with a stainless steel slide. And stainless steel is the one that my wife and I fell in love with in Bernal. So they do last quite long. And they were when we chatted with another group of folks about the stainless steel slides, and because we're not going to be in the sun, one of the big risks is that they'd be baking in the sun and get really hot. So stainless might make sense, and you can sort of carry them in, and the cost for producing the slides is then likely lower, but then there's more buildup of just the support structures and things like that. So we had a few chats about that. Then we kind of also brainstormed some ideas around, okay, we keep the structure of the staircase as is, then you've got the slides alongside them in two places. Kids are going to sort of carve away, or adults kind of scrabble up fun ways. So we thought what tends to be common is other light playground-like ways to sort of get up, like a little rope or something. Or if you've been to the new park in San Francisco, right? It's all sort of like wooden structures, and it's like mismatched logs and things like that. So we had that conversation. The way that we kind of left it is that a landscape architect is probably the next conversation point that we have to have. And Tony, maybe you can update on the name of the folks we're speaking with currently. And it sounded like an update from you is that they might be coming for a short site visit late next week to take things forward.
Yes, yeah. So the company is Miracle Play Systems.
Yes.
And they have a couple of representatives, one of whom I believe is a landscape designer, and will be, they said that they would come out for a site visit just to see if this would be a suitable place for a slide. And they would then be able to provide their recommendations for what would be possible, and hopefully be able to give some kind of estimates as well for the types of costs. To add to just I guess the question of adding slides to a park, there is something that we need to address, and that is the zoning of the land. So the general plan outlines which parts of the city are zoned for different activities, and there are certain areas that are designated for recreation, such as Community Park and with the playground, and Tom Price Park with the tennis courts. Centennial Park does not have the same designation. It has a designation, I believe, of open space, which is scenic property. And I'm probably getting the language wrong here, but it would be important in thinking about this proposal to make sure that the use of the park remains, Centennial Park and Hawthorne Lane remains predominantly as a scenic park, and it doesn't become sort of a full-on playground. And yeah, that would be important. And I think the Planning Commission probably, I don't think we'd even be able to consider it really without looking at changing the designation of that park. So there are definitely kind of structural issues that we still do need to work out. But I think, that side of things we can do. But I think what's moving forward right now with getting estimates and proposals and just getting somebody with experience to take a look at the site and give us their take, is great.
That and that certainly aligns with the original proposal / vision. Not that there's no intention for this to turn into a full bore playground or things like that. This is really about a different manner of descent, if you will, through the space. And that's largely what the inspiration came from when you looked at the slides in San Francisco. Those two sites I mentioned in Castro and in Bernal Hill, there are no other play structures, as it were. It really is just kind of a fun quirk.
Another way to get down.
Another way to get down. So the way I sort of see the timing going is hopefully we can have some sense of feasibility, like, is this site even possible? Maybe some of these zoning conversations before the next meeting, that would be great. And then also some lens into like, okay, what's a cost potentially for this? And if we had those two things by next meeting, maybe as a group, we could talk about, what does a funding plan look like? What, if any, outreach do we need to do? But it does feel like the feasibility and the sense of cost for this would be precursors to that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the cost would be, obviously, very important. And I know Jenna Watson said that she had, she felt that fundraising would definitely be something that would need to happen. There are some funds allocated right now to Centennial Park improvements. But that really is to cover there's a wooden section of the stairs over there that's in very poor condition. And really the funds that have been allocated are with that in mind of kind of fixing those stairs and maybe doing some kind of small improvements to those. And so, so there would definitely be a fundraising element, basically. Yeah.
I guess I grew up with stainless steel slides. I really can't now remember if there was a big issue about them getting too hot. I really don't like all these plastic playgrounds, so I hate to even ask if there's any kind of, other materials alternative to.
I think they had mentioned plastic, but I think it should be around like durability and like prevention of it just getting moldy and things like that, because it is so heavily forested there.
I mean, it would definitely not fit in, I don't think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, concrete in that respect, concrete might be a more low-key option, but yeah, we can see what they say.
And in the original presentation, I think one thing I'm looking forward to if it comes to this point is getting the community involved in whatever way they can to sort of beautify the area and help clean it up. There's a great story about the Bernal slides that the surrounding vegetation had gone into disrepair and the community got together and did plantings and things like that. So it could be really nice. And having done some history on it, I believe the site was donated to the city by the two surrounding neighbors in '96. So we're coming up on an anniversary, 2026. I'd love to see if we could line this up to do it for I don't know if that's 30 years, like 30-year anniversary of the donation of that park, to really turn it into a park for the first time.
Yeah, one thing I have on my to-do list, which I haven't done, is that once I was researching to find out the status of the original lane, which parallels what was Hillary and Joan Dawn's house, because the realtor for that seller had put up a fence, and I said, I don't think that's allowed. Anyway, the end result was no, it wasn't allowed. But when I went through the file, there was this great piece by Hillary Dawn, who he was a doctor, but he was like a local historian. He used to write a piece for the ARC every week. It was 100 years prior, taken from the IJ. So he has this piece. It's in the city's file, but it's not in any of our files. So I have a note to myself to ask Nancy if I can go see it again and get it copied. But it traces the whole history of the parcel of land. Who owned it before, and how they finally got it, what kind of parties they had there to celebrate it. And it's very readable. He was a great writer. Unfortunately, he didn't make it to his 100th year, but I know it's in there somewhere. So I'll see if I can go find it, because it should be in the Park and Recreation files. Maybe that can be the first document. And I know you've mentioned that it's a problem finding our documents, because usually the only way I can find them is by figuring out what agenda they were attached to, like the views one. So it's on my to-do list to go send you that article, the view report, Jan Anderson's famous report, and the deed to the artist view.
That'd be.
All those things are other than the Hillary one, are in somewhere, but they're not readily, you can't find them easily.
I even found that with the new website for the city, a bunch of the old minutes are no longer available.
Yeah, unfortunately, they weren't moved to the new website. They are still available if you have questions, you know, we're able to look it up. And we do have, you know, we do have them, but they're not as readily available.
I was going to do a huge, I'm digressing. I mean, I have a stack of papers like this I was going to finally get rid of them. I'll look and see if there's anything worth, but I do have a minutes file for a while.
Okay, that'd be great.
Another two do. First,
But-
I'll find these 4 key ones.
That'd be amazing. So I think that probably covers it on Centennial, but I expect by next meeting, we should have more substantial update on that. Are we holding on the discussion of repairing the wooden steps until this is resolved, or are you planning to think about proceeding on those?
That's a good question. Before the proposal of the slides, that was sort of next in line after Park Lane. My understanding of it now is that now encompasses slides. So upgrades to Centennial Park would be slides and improvements to the stairs. So yeah, it would be. I think it would be best considered under the, you know, Centennial Park upgrades, single project. Yeah.
Thank you.
So keep them all together.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
No, there's not. And that's one of the issues that I think with proposals for a different landscape at Centennial Park, that has been the main problem. And I know there's been suggestions for some kind of water catchment system. But, you know, right now there's nothing, no.
I mean, two former members of this committee who were master gardeners, and they collaborated with another person who was specialist, and I forget the terminology, but basically gardens that don't need water. And they came up with plants, and they had a community planting there. And it's just a tough site. I mean, you would never know all this was done. It was a big project. So, I mean, it has been explored. It's just a really hard spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting site because it's very shaded, and I think it probably moisture stays in the soil for quite a while after spring. And I noticed the last time I was up there that there were a lot of wildflowers out, some of which must have been planted. They were probably bulbs. And I took some pictures of them kind of for future reference, so that if we do have a push for a planting day or something like that, that perhaps this is what we should plant, because this is what, you know, manages to survive here without any irrigation.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I think that's probably our only hope.
Thank you for your comment also. Do you have any other questions on Centennial Park? Are there any questions online?
There are no questions online.
Thank you. Okay. We've got a lot of items here. The next one, item 8, is a discussion on upgrades to recreational facilities. And this includes the tennis court, bottle filler station, trash can locations, San Rafael Avenue, pathway repairs, bench availability, types and installation sites at Community Park. I guess, Tony, give this big, long list to you, and maybe you can give us any updates.
Thank you. Yes, I will as soon as I can get caught up with Zoom here, and I have just some pictures to share.
Oh, thank you.
I also have a note from Kathy Pearson, who said that she's on her way. So hopefully she'll catch us before the end of the meeting. And if you'll just give me a minute to get this slideshow up.
That is fine.
Who remembers her proclamation and can recite it back?
So Tony's looking. Does anyone have any comments on any of these topics right now come to mind? I had one that's not on the list. I was gonna, while Tony's looking, just mention it. I was gonna mention it under future items. But I had read that Mill Valley had put adaptable swings in every one of its playgrounds. And it occurred to me that that was something that we never discussed when this renovation was done here. And I only did just a little quick look to see what was an adaptable swing. And basically, they just had a lot more safety features than the swings, normal swings for little kids, for small kids, like 1-year-olds, had more things on the side, more things on the legs. And I haven't been to Mill Valley to see what it is that they have. But for future agenda items, I thought maybe it might be something that we should look into, because it simply wasn't considered when we did our playground renovation.
I will add it to the list of possible future agenda items. And I was actually at Mill Valley when we were looking at those swings, so I'm glad they've been installed.
Are they the plastic ones that have the
Yes.
plugging thing?
Yep. Kind of a surround and back support really is what the main thing they offer. All right. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for your patience. Can everybody see the screen, my screen? Great.
Yeah, I see it. Thank
Great.
you.
So I'll direct your attention to the picture on the right over there, which is the old drinking fountain at the tennis court. And then, jump to our new one, which is that was taken yesterday. And the main feature on that that allowed us to install it was the bottle filler, which is the top part of the unit, and that provides filtered water for people to fill up their bottles. And so we got that we were reimbursed for the cost of that unit. It cost about $9,000, and we were reimbursed by the county for that. And then we also got a grant from the BCF, the Belvedere Community Foundation, for the installation. They paid $5,000 out of the cost of about $8,000 for the installation. And in fact, the remaining some of the remaining $3,000 was also reimbursed by the county. Zero Waste Marin is the grant that we applied for that.
It almost looks like it's about to say something. There should be a little caption over a bubble.
It just needs a hug. Are people drinking more water? Can you tell?
It's definitely being used. I think probably the one that's being most used is the one at the bottom. The dog, there's a little doggy bowl at the bottom there. That one's definitely being used, but the other ones are too. So yeah, it definitely seems like it's getting a fair bit of use.
Okay. I'm just curious, thinking like, okay, your experience with installing this seems like it's positive and people are using it. There's definitely a water fountain over here that is constantly like jammed and plugged. And is it your team and thought that like maybe we need to put this style there as well, or potentially other places?
Potentially, and I think the main I think the main feature, the water bottle filling feature, is how people drink water these days. So I think that's the main thing. The other things here are ADA. The little fountain on the right is an ADA compliant fountain. The one on the left is a sort of kind of old-fashioned drinking fountain, and then the doggy bowl at the bottom are all great. But as far as them getting blocked, that for some reason, designers of drinking fountains and bottle filling stations can't design a drinking fountain with some kind of filter, because it happens all the time. And kids near playgrounds are just attracted to this kind of thing, and they have dirt and
Yeah.
bark and leaves, and they play with it, and
Stew.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They make stew, and it's just sort of an ongoing maintenance issue. Yeah, unfortunately. And there is another thing to for the next meeting's agenda will be a proposed donation of a drinking fountain for the Land Company Park, which is the park in front of the yacht club. So we will be hopefully installing another one in the next few months.
That's a replacement?
No, there's no fountain out there at all right now. So this would be a new, brand new drinking fountain. Yeah.
We'll probably get more use after we get out of gray May. Or May grays. or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Moving on to Sanderfell Avenue and the Gateway. As we can see, the trash can was moved from next to that post over there with the doggy bag holder to between the tree and the bench. And we worked with Tiburon. Tiburon were happy to basically provide one of their own cans. That is their park. I think they have a name for it. Yep, so they were happy to let us just remove our can and then place one of theirs. From what I've heard, it's a positive change. It's definitely the trash, and you can see there's a little pile of trash next to this one because a good person has gone along the shoreline and picked up some trash. That's what I would choose to think, and left it there for somebody to take away. But that's no longer, the first thing you see. I think it's kind of tucked away a little bit under the tree, and sort of looks like it's basically less sort of directly in your view when you come in. And we can talk about, I don't know if this maybe now would be a good time to see if the committee members agree that this is a good spot, because I think we're going to come back and discuss whether it was successful.
Yeah, no, I, if I could have my choice, I'd move it further, but I think it's great. I think it's positive. It's not the first thing you see when you drive in, which I think was the goal. But I also don't think that us discussing now should be determinative. If, 6, 9 months, a year from now, it's not having the impact that we want, we can always revert or think about other ideas.
Now I think the doggy thing should be moved next to it too, because it just looks out of place in some way.
That's where I was going too.
Yeah.
Now the first thing you see is a doggy poop thing.
Yeah.
And that'd be lovely if we could move that to a similar location, or perhaps attach it to the little fence thingy versus have it be its own structure. The little fence thingy being it covers the culvert where it drops off there to the left. But yeah, that was my main comment here. I like the trash can, but we still got one other thing there.
Well, yeah, and it's a really good point, because as you all probably know, one of the things with doggy bags is that you often see them on the ground. They're being used. The dirty work's been done. The poop is in there, but then it's left on the ground. And so, I think the idea with the original placement of the can, apart from it being in Belvedere, was that it was next to the doggy bag dispenser. As far as I know, all of our doggy bag dispensers are next to trash cans as a suggestion. So yeah, that is I definitely see your point. And I can talk to Tiburon and see if they would be okay with us installing that container over there. We can continue to service it ourselves, but I can at least see what they think.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then we had mentioned it last time, but I was thinking like what could we put there if we have to put anything? And maybe putting nothing there is the best thing, but a lot of the other trails and things like that. If you're walking down Tiburon, you don't know that you've now entered Belvedere. And it could be cool to have, I'm thinking now like a low on the ground, little 45-degree angle plaque or something like, I don't know, welcome to Belvedere, founded in 1886 or whenever it was. Something subtle there to let you know you're now in Belvedere, but not blocking the view in any way might be nice.
Yeah, that's a great thought.
Yeah. Welcome. Pick up your poop. You can get them 10 yards to the right. Yeah. So not urgent or anything like that, but I do feel you think you're in Tiburon, you're in Tiburon, you're in Tiburon. Oh, I'm going to turn right here. I'm still in Tiburon. It might be nice to say, welcome to Belvedere. Belvedere's awesome in some small way right there.
Yeah, something to think about, and definitely open to any thoughts and suggestions, and we can discuss them at a meeting if anybody has a creative idea.
Okay.
For something we
I
can
can
do.
I can follow up on that with some.
Now I
Mock-ups.
can't remember, is there a permanent sign on the left where that,
At the very beginning of San Rafael.
Oh. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great.
yeah, that,
That'd be great. Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking about that too, and I was having trouble visualizing what was there, but I knew there's something there.
Is it on the other side of the street?
It's on,
Yeah.
it's on
Yep,
your left.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, or if you stop at the lights there, you can see it across the on the corner from the corner.
Yeah, I think something like that would be nice, as a little sign across there.
Well, I can absolutely investigate some kind of carved lettering
Yeah.
that we can add.
Thanks, Tony.
Absolutely. And
And I just want to add, I mentioned a few before this. I spent like a sunset hanging out at that little park on the beach right there, and it was awesome. So I'd encourage people to hang out there. It was really great. And thank you, Tiburon, for providing that small park.
Oh,
All right, so this is our other new trash can on West Shore Road that we installed. And it seems to be doing the job. We have had a complaint from one of the neighbors, and so we are looking at other locations to move this to on West Shore Road. But the main idea here was there is a problem with doggy poop on this road, and it's attracting rodents, which in turn is attracting coyotes. This is kind of a hotspot for coyotes, and so this is hopefully something that can help improve that situation.
Tony,
yeah.
I don't know if this would make it worse, but I've seen those garbage cans that you use your foot and it lifts up like a latch, like a hutch or something like that. And maybe it's not as visually like in the way. Would that work, or would that be worse?
I think so. We do have those actually in the park. In Community Park, we've got 2 sets of cans, and one of the features is a pedal that you can kind of
Oh, no, I
open
mean,
the
literally,
can.
it's like sunken in the earth, like a time capsule.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like at a golf course. Yeah.
I'd have to.
I don't know if they're complaining about the fact that there's a garbage can at all, or if they just don't like looking at it.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's unsightly. They feel it's unsightly, and yeah, they don't like that it's outside their house.
Yeah.
Um,
The bag thing. Yeah.
Right, and so that would be important. We'd need to make sure that Mill Valley Refuse would be able to collect those. But I'm not familiar with those. Yeah, I'd be happy to look into those and see if,
Yeah.
yeah, I would have to find out. Sanderville Avenue DG pathway repairs are finally complete, on again, off again with all the rain. And so now that it's finally ended, I think now that the rain's finally ended, we've got our pathway all repaired. And apparently this last little patch of rain that we had a week or two ago, you know, it's always going to be soggy right after the rain, but it did dry up very quickly afterwards. We didn't have puddles for days afterwards, so it seems to be doing the job, which is great. Yes. So what was done was, and this is kind of recommendation from the contractor, was that there was enough good quality material in there for there to be no reason to remove it and replace it. It was rototilled up with a rototiller, churned up, loosened, and then new material with resin was added and mixed into it, and then tamped down, compressed down, and that's what we have. And it is, I think, the other thing with it is that we have to see it as an ongoing maintenance task, and every year we should be really, you know, doing little sections and repairing sections. It's not just a hardscape that can be left. It's something that we need to try and stay on top of. Benches at Community Park, and the reason we have a picture of these two particular benches is because we have discussed new benches in different sections of the park, and I know a chess table, a chessboard on a table has also been brought up as a suggestion. So this is our playground, and on the left, the bench on the left is one of the older benches that's left behind, and on the right is one of the newer benches that was brought in when the playground was built. The suggestion from staff is to replace the older benches with the new style on the right, so that in the playground we only have the new style benches instead of having a mix of old and new, and that would allow us to reuse the older benches and take them and use them in different parts of the park. So we're looking at that. We will only be able to do it. Those are surprisingly expensive, as all playground stuff is, but we would need we'd need a grant from Belvedere Community Foundation. So that would be our next step. And at this point, it took us a little while to get hold of the maker of those benches, and we've got a quote and so on. We'll be able to do that. And then as far as the locations for these benches, I know the far end of Community Park we've discussed before, under the tree. There is a bench there now. It has occurred to me that there is no path to that bench, which may or may not be an issue. I know other benches are kind of situated sort of along the walkway. But the other question for me is, if we do have a picnic table with a chessboard on it, would that have anywhere specific to go? What came to mind was the gazebo, because there's a table and there's sort of a table and chair set in there. And yeah, that could possibly be replaced because it's a sort of a standalone kind of location. Other tables and chairs are picnic tables, and they all kind of line up and match each other. So I don't know if the committee has any thoughts on where a possible chessboard table could go.
Well, I'd like to hear your views. I have one thought, but I'm not sure about it.
No, please go ahead. I kind of just want the chessboard table, and I don't really have a strong opinion about where it goes.
Well, I guess it kind of depends a little on who may use it. But I mean, assuming that you're there with family of various ages, I mean, some older children might I mean, do play chess, so it might be nice to have it not that far
Yeah.
from the general playground and have it someplace out in this, grassy area that you could see off of one of these paths, as opposed to putting it way over on the other side of the gazebo.
I did see a picture when I was kind of doing a little bit of just looking around online. Saw a picture of a picnic table with quite a creatively painted chessboard on the table. So it was just a regular picnic table, but a chessboard that had been painted onto it. And yeah, it occurred to me that would be the easiest solution. But of course, you'd want it to be nicely done. Yeah, so that's a possibility.
Was the one you saw bigger than just, sort of card table size? Was it picnic table size?
It was a picnic table size. So it was one of those redwood picnic tables, and it had, even with the slats in the table, it still had the board, the checkerboard going over the slats.
Well, then it would be multi-purpose. I mean, all this is bringing back other thoughts. I mean, we once went through a whole big project about a ping pong table. And I mean, I probably should save all this paperwork. 'cause,
Yeah.
I mean, it was made of concrete, and then it was after one that was at Stinson Beach. And I can't remember now exactly why it did not proceed. But I mean, and we've also discussed bocce ball. So I think all these things need to get revisited. But it might be nice if the table was multi-purpose, because sometimes you do need more tables than are available there.
Yeah, I think I was imagining initially just the square tables that you would see in Washington Square Park in New York City when they have that little enclave over there, and it's that interesting eclectic thing. But if it was to fit on top of some other, I love the idea of it being multi-use. Not that a square card table isn't multi-use, but
Limited
love- I lo-
party.
I like the idea of this being closer. I also have this probably unfounded vision of people going to the police station or the community center and like checking out the pieces, or if there's some box where you can just get them and through the goodness of your heart, hopefully return them. And it being just closer to that whole area could make something like that more feasible. Whether you're checking out the ping pong paddles or if you're checking out chess pieces.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a great idea. We'd have to see what the police department thinks of that. And that's, yeah, I mean, I mean, I would like to think that it shouldn't be a problem for them to, be able to hold on to a little bag of chess pieces. Yeah, and I agree with you that I think multipurpose is a great way to go, because if a big group is having a picnic, then mixing in a board, a chessboard is a nice idea, or it can be standalone but integrated to the other tables, really, I guess would be the thought. And as we're sitting here, I'm wondering if maybe a board could be kind of inlaid into a table. If you like, that's what I can look at. Tables with chessboards involved seem to be quite pricey, again, as most park furniture and so on tends to be. So this would definitely be a more cost-effective way to kind of introduce a chessboard. So yeah, if you like, I can look into how we might be able to go about adding one to an existing table.
I was also, sorry, Nick. I was just gonna say, I think the library puts on some sort of chess clinic or something. And if it's okay, I could try to reach out to them and ask if folks there have an opinion, or if they would think that they even want this, or if the library would want to do something outside there. Is that appropriate if I were to try to reach out?
Absolutely,
and see if we're considering that? Okay.
Yeah. And as a new committee member, yeah, one of the things that I'm realizing about Belvedere is that the volunteers really, which for committees like this are really, they do a lot to facilitate this kind of thing. A lot of bigger cities, there's kind of a removal. The volunteers and the committee members and commissions and so on deal with kind of decision making and so on. But what I think one of the great things about Belvedere is the involvement of the volunteers with these kinds of issues. So absolutely, I'd encourage you to, as a Parks and Open Space and Lanes committee member, go over there and ask questions.
I'm good. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Is there any?
One more to mention, and actually this comes later on in the agenda, but I'll maybe keep the picture up, is this handrail installation on Cedar Lane, which happened, I believe, the week after the lanes run that happened a few months ago. Unfortunately, timing didn't work out, but this is where there was the handrail that was held up by masking tape, I think. So yeah, this is,
It was pretty bad. Well,
Yep.
it was on Jan Anderson's famous list.
no longer.
Actually, that just reminds me of another thing. Do we have another item on lanes?
Yeah.
We
number
do.
10.
We've got an item on trees and then an item on lanes.
I'll wait till that one. Okay, so this is just recreation facilities we're focused on. Anything else on any comments from anyone else here or online on upgrades to recreation facilities as discussed from our agenda?
I have no online comments.
Okay, then we'll move on to number 9, which is a discussion on trees, specifically tree planting at Community Park, and more specifically, what species of trees, which we had introduced at our last meeting, and I think we're looking for more information maybe.
Yes. So at the last meeting, we talked about the plum tree that right now is next to the bench on the San Rafael Avenue side of Community Park. There's a flowering red plum that has some cables in it, so it's been in decline for a while. But recently, the city arborist noted that that tree should be removed because it has a form of fungus that's an aggressive pathogen that actually, with most funguses, they eat dead tissue in trees, but this type of fungus actually eats live tissue. So that tree could fall down at any time, and it's next to a bench, so it really ought to be removed. So that will be happening at some point, and we discussed a replacement tree for that. And the first, I think we discussed a few things. The suggestion was a linden tree, like the tree in front of the yacht club in the Land Company Park. So I spoke to our city arborist, and she provided a list of trees, which didn't include a linden. But when I asked her about a linden, she said she thought that would be a great option, and that it would be suitable for that location. I can give you some of the other suggestions, and she broke them into small trees, medium trees, and large trees, but without wanting to overcomplicate it. If the committee feels that the linden is the tree that they'd like to see over there, we can just work with that.
Well, I like them. I mean, it is deciduous, but as long as everybody knows that, it'll lose leaves. But they are really pretty trees.
I think it's a great tree to move forward with.
Did you have any that you liked better?
No, I think that is I mean, the list she sent, they're all beautiful trees. But I think a linden, I think clearly it does very well in Belvedere conditions. There are not many places that you can plant big trees, but there's a lot of space there, and there's water because it's irrigated. So I think there would be space for a linden to grow right there. I think it's a great choice.
Well, I know, I think we're lucky because you are very knowledgeable about trees. Also with the pruning, when Tony supervises, it does make a big difference. So, I mean, I would be in favor of just following through with that recommendation. You know, it seemed like getting that old one out as soon as possible would be good in case there's any danger that this could spread.
Yeah, I didn't,
If it's airborne or insect-borne or.
it has spores. It probably is airborne. I think that wasn't something that the arborist mentioned as being of concern.
Oh, she probably would have mentioned it if it was.
I would have thought so. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it is definitely on the list to be removed.
My question would be when to plant it. Soon or next fall?
I think what's that old adage? The best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago. And the next best time is today or tomorrow, something like that. So I think the ideal time is spring or fall. Yep, for sure. But you know, I think if you know, if we're able to get irrigation to it through the summer, then maybe that's how we'll decide, is how close we are to the irrigation and if we can keep it moist. Great.
I have one tiny community park update. I figured out you can ring the bell in the gazebo, and it sounds great. And we got to use that somehow. So start thinking.
On the planting.
Yeah, on the planting. Yeah.
The Great Linden Tree Planting.
Okay.
Something to add on trees, just for our item, the discussion on trees. I met with a plant scientist from the, what do they call it? The extension,
Oh, Master Gardeners, UC Davis?
from UC Davis, but not a master gardener. So not involved with master gardeners. He's basically a consulting plant scientist. And he came out and took a look at our pear tree, the historic pear tree out front. And he had some suggestions for us. He said that it didn't look like it was diseased. So that was good news. But he said that it definitely looked like it's in decline. The amount of leaf cover that it has in relation to the amount of kind of trunk material that it has is not good. The proportion isn't good. The leaves, you know, produce sugars from photosynthesis. So his main suggestion for what we need to do is to get some irrigation going on out there, which I was surprised by how simple that was. But he said that that was he believed would be the first step. So that's what we're going to try and do if you know, if the committee all agrees that it's something that we should prioritize, whether it's by hand watering or getting some kind of irrigation piping going on out there. It seems like that tree would be happier with water through the summer months.
Well, thank you first for getting this consultation. And yes, I think we'd all agree you should proceed. Give it a
Great.
try.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he was great. And it was good to have made the connection. He you know, I think he took it quite seriously and felt that, you know, he wanted to be involved with making sure this tree lasts for as long as possible. But he did say, oh, in the broader context, you know, this is a very old tree for what it is, an orchard that was planted in 1860, and this tree is still going. So, you know, he did emphasize that it's in decline, but we can do our best to try and help it. So yeah, I guess there's no reason not to. But yeah, and I'll update the committee on how it goes.
Can you let us know if it has a fruit this year? I mean, I'll check and walk by, but I mean, I think last year it had one.
Yes, yeah, it did. It did. So that was another thing, and thank you for reminding me, because the other thing that he said is that the disease that affects pear trees is called fire blight, and the way that it enters the trees is through the flowers. And so he said, one of the things that we should do is in the late winter, early spring, need to see if there are any flowers on the tree, and if there are, to remove them. And that unfortunately would mean that there wouldn't be any fruit. But he said at this point, until the tree, if the tree does start to recover, we can hopefully allow it to have some flowers and some fruit in the future. But yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that, and yeah, it's quite a good learning experience. Yeah, I guess to go on, we have pear trees down here in the parking lot of the community center, and those definitely have fire blight. It's just a lot of pear trees in Marin County have fire blight, and you sort of manage it. Last year we pruned the affected branches out of the trees. It'll definitely be back, and it'll get to a point where we'll just prune it out again. But there are a couple of other species around here that said, he said basically there are plenty of host species around here to transfer it. So yeah, it's vulnerable, and we'll do what we can.
Okay, is there any questions from the public, either here or online, about the tree discussions?
There's no public comment online.
The last item, number 10, is discussion on lanes. And just as a footnote to our meeting, I have to pick up a grandchild at 7, and it's way over in Mill Valley. So I probably should leave here in about 10 minutes.
I can keep my updates very short.
So I may have to, we'll do the updates. Ask for a motion to put off some of these things till the next meeting. So just lane update. I think you've kind of covered some of this.
Yes, I have. And so just starting with the picture, Cedar Lane handrail installation occurred, and then one lane over Woodward Lane, there was a replacement railing also that happened. Park Lane update is that we got a geotechnical report and moved that on to the structural engineer. Structural engineer felt that there wasn't enough detail for them to be able to provide a structural design without getting a more accurate picture of the underground utilities at that location. There are sewer lines, drain lines, water lines, electric lines, and possibly gas lines all running through that construction site. And their job is to decide where the piers will go into the ground, and these will go deep into the ground. So we are now having a survey done on to try and locate all of those utilities much more accurately than the general kind of underground spray painting does. And then we'll have a structural design. If there are problems with that, and this is in discussion with the city engineer, the idea would be to move forward with getting bids for the work, get funding in place for the work, and then the contractor's first job would be to pothole the site to locate exactly where all the lines are, so that the structural engineer could then provide us with a plan, and then we could move forward. And that's where we are with that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tony. That was very thorough. I think we can see there are a few things that need to be done, and you are following up on all of them, so thank you. So quickly, the only thing that I was going to note on lanes is that actually it's on Park Lane, and for a number of years, there's been a break in the handrail adjacent to a gate that goes to the property, which has been being rebuilt for probably, I don't know how many years, but it's just every time I see it, I sort of think, ooh, if somebody ran into that, it looks really dangerous, because there's just the two, I don't know if you've seen it, but here's one railing, here's another, and then there's this gap where the fence is. And it should either, it needs to be capped off and put down. I'm guessing that the property owner cut it. Make access to its gate. So maybe planning, you could ask Rebecca if they can do something about that.
Yes,
Because it's really kind of a safety hazard if, some kid was running down there and whatever.
yeah, yeah, very possibly was part of a construction plan, maybe bringing in materials or something for a project, and that was never kind of buttoned up, basically. So, yep, I will.
I mean, I'm assuming they cut it, not the city. So that's why I think planning, I don't know if it's part of the approved plan, but it happened. And now there's a hazard. It has
Yep.
been.
Yep, I think it's. Yeah, I think that's probably a good guess, a good thought on what happened.
Is there any other comments
I
on?
had a tiny lane thing, which was
I'm
having-
sorry, which lane?
Albert's Alley.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the only public lane that's accessible that doesn't have a sign.
Hmm.
So I was wondering if we could just get a sign put up there, and was it Roger Felton, the person who paints all of those? That could be fun. I was hearing Albert was like an old dog or something that lived at the bottom of the lane who was kind of grouchy. So I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm not suggesting what the art would be, but I think it'd be neat to put a sign there like the rest of the public lanes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure why one has never been put up there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's that will be, it is kind of dangerous.
My only hesitation is if we put the sign up, I would hope it be after it was prepared, because I wouldn't want, right now, nobody really knows that it's,
Yeah.
most people really don't know, and it's a pretty dangerous walkway.
Yeah, that's probably a better way of thinking about it. My mental framework was make people aware of it. They'll see it's dangerous, or see it needs repair, and then that could help the cause for repair.
We already know it's dangerous
Okay,
around here,
yeah,
so, that's the only hesitation I have, because it really, I just want to encourage people to go down at this point.
okay.
But I'm not against doing it once it's repaired.
Yeah, it's for me, I think that makes sense. Thematically, those lanes that do go down to the water line, I think I'm interested in making sure that we put those into our plan in terms of repairs and things like that. And this felt like kind of a smaller thing towards that end, because it's just kind of a sign of awareness, but maybe it sounds like we need to talk about repairs first.
Yeah, I actually haven't been down there myself, so I'll do that. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
There
Yeah.
used to be
yeah.
a broader concept called the Lanes Initiative, which encompassed, it ended, and it was called the Lanes Initiative, and basically it was to restore or fix all these lanes that weren't maintained or usable. And our committee made a vote on which ones to prioritize. And our vote was Artist View. So all the attention got diverted there, and some of these other lanes like Albert's Alley did not get focused on. But I mean, there's a whole thing, the lane map is in the view report, and it's also in the city codes.
Mhm.
And it shows all of these undeveloped lanes.
Yeah.
I mean, they all have numbers. There's a whole slew of them. So it's another big area for the committee to look into. And some of them are easier than others to get back into making them usable. But also, it's another footnote, there was another family that wanted to rename that, and we had a lot of proceedings on that.
I think I've heard
And
about that.
I think the end result was we decided not to name lanes after people because it would just be an unending, complicated process.
That makes sense. For what it's worth, I agree with the prioritization of artists over Alberts. But I do think it's worth, take a stroll down there. And I think,
It may have another, I think it may have another official name, because I think maybe Roger Felton came to one of our meetings and said what the actual name is. I'll have to look at
Okay, that'd
the
be cool.
lane map, but I mean, I think there is a name for it.
Okay.
Yeah, the map that I have definitely says Albert's Alley. Yeah,
It does?
yeah, yeah.
Well, Roger Felton has a different, I think I recall, he had another name for it.
Maybe that's why there's no artwork for it. No.
Yeah.
Okay, any further comment on lanes? Sorry to rush things along here. From the public or online?
There's no public comment online
Thank
for
you.
this item.
Okay, new business, discussion of our committee's representatives attending the Belvedere Emergency Preparedness Day and Community Picnic on June 15th, 2024. I know Kathy is not here, but I think she said that she would attend.
She mentioned that to me.
Charlie said She would attend.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think I'll be there.
Great.
I'm not sure what my plan is on that date. If I could come, I'll let Charlie know.
So I know we don't have any time, but when I'm at something like that, talking about it would just be useful to understand like what should I be promoting and talking about, like other than like generics. Is it possible to go into like specificity or take notes from people? What is guidance when representing this committee to the public in that way outside of this meeting?
I think the main overlap that this committee has with the emergency preparedness is the lanes, because they're considered evacuation routes. So there's definitely a common interest in having lanes maintained and kept in good condition as much as possible. Yeah. And then the community center, I believe, I can't remember if that's under the purview here. It's kind of a recreation facility. That's a designated shelter, heating and cooling shelter, I think.
So
I'd have to check on that.
I think Adam was saying it would be good to have collateral of some way. It could be neat to have those printed out maps that just like the Belvedere map that shows where the parks and lanes are that we could give out. Is that
Yes.
something?
Yeah,
get a
and in
stack
fact, we
of?
actually found, well, there's a couple of places where they are, but we could probably email you a link to the official map of where the lanes are in the city, lanes and
I
parks.
can do that tomorrow.
That'd be great. But
Yeah.
can I like print them out here or something? Like, is there?
We could probably print them out here too. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get a little pile of them. Yeah,
That's what I think.
sure.
Just a little pile to give. Oh, you want to know where the lanes are? Here you go.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
I think it may be an attachment to the city codes. And it's called, and it has on it Exhibit 5 or something.
I've seen,
like
and there's
that.
like 2 or 3 different versions of it.
6.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has different colors. It shows the open space and then the lanes.
I was going to suggest this for new business, but I have an idea of making a web version of this map where to just overlay this on top of Google Maps. And as you walked around, it could tell you if you've entered one of these like view easements or something like that. So I'm going to kind of poke around and try to make that for next meeting.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Full circle to enforcement.
That, I mean, it's all about awareness. It'll tell you as you walk by Albert's Alley, even if there's not a sign.
Okay, and any public or online comments?
I have no online comments.
Okay, item number 12 is suggestion and discussion of possible items to be put on agenda of upcoming meetings. The only one listed here is nominations and voting for chair and vice chair at the next meeting. I think that some other items have been brought up during the course of our meeting today to discuss. I mentioned that those adaptive swings, Charlie just mentioned this mapping of the lanes.
Mhm.
Are there any other further items that
I wanted to discuss whether or not we could move this to be every other month rather than, 2 to 3 to 4 times a year. And I think historically it had been.
Yes.
So we don't have to debate it now, but I think
Yeah.
that would be a useful thing to.
Yeah, so that would be another item, would be the number of meetings of this committee, whether to go back to,
Shorter, yes, yeah.
yeah, it used to be every other month, third Thursday every other month. So we had 6 rather than 4.
Yeah.
The other thing was we also used to have 7 members rather than 5. It would have been helpful today. A little more input.
Yeah, maybe I'd like to just consider the members too. Why not have 7 again?
So swings, the mapping, the meetings, number of meetings, meeting schedule.
I've got a little list going as well. Just some things that we've done before, and I think would be good to hear from the ranch for on their activities in Belvedere, recreation activities, and then an update from Painted Bins on their annual art contest for the trash cans in Community Park. Training for the Brown Act is something that city manager has discussed with all the staff or all the committees and commissions. Just something that
Once you have all the new members, that would be a good idea.
yes, exactly. And we should have, hopefully we'll have new members at the next meeting. And so it'll be a good time to have some kind of training. The other thing was a donation. Yeah, so the drinking fountain donation at Land Company Park. That's something that the committee will need to approve because as far as if I remember correctly, it's in honor of a person. So yep, it would need the committee would need to approve that. There's also the sign in the gateway, an update on that, I guess. And Albert's Alley sign is what I have. Yep. So
Lots of things.
And we're gonna
Yep.
have the new maintenance individual come visit as well.
yes, right. Thank you. And introduce him. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then we also discussed having Alberto come to a meeting
Right. Yep. Exactly.
and.
Come to that
having-
meeting.
There were a couple of things for the planning department. This Golden Gate Lane and the sidewalks.
Sidewalks. Exactly. That's what it was. Oh, yeah, sidewalk vegetation. I do have it.
And just understanding the enforcement of that, we can send out just a nice, pleasant neighborly letters versus.
Yeah, and I can definitely, I suppose, I can chat with Rebecca Markwick, who's the director of planning, just kind of work out a game plan, find out what might have been done in the past, see if we can find any letters that have been sent out, any templates, and go from there, and then update you guys on what's being done. Yeah, and
Tony, did you get the one? I think I'm going to try to make an online version of the map that I wanted to show.
right. No, I didn't. Or did I? No, I didn't.
Describe that very well.
Lane's map.
I got you.
I've got it now.
Great.
Great.
Okay, any other additions from the public online?
No public comment online.
The last item is the date and time of the next meeting, which is suggested for 4:30 Thursday, July 25th, 2024. Maybe the best thing is to poll all all of the members, including
the
whoever's
new
gonna
members?
be the new members,
Right, yeah, Yep.
and see what's what.
yep, okay. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Yeah, maybe do it the beginning of July. Are
Great.
there any comments online on our meeting schedule?
No public comment on the last item.
And open forum?
I have no one online asking for comments on open forum.
Thank you. Okay, well then, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all, and thank you for